finally here. You've finally arrived. You've at last found the one place which holds the answers to the questions of the ages. You're excited. Your heart palpitates. Is it real? Can it be true? You're understandably hesitant, yet determinedly hopeful. That is good. Your faith in such matters will be rewarded. You'll not find pat and cliched answers here, no! Here is a place of clarity, of definition, of explanation, of truth. Here combines science and religion, removes tradition and replaces it with fact. Here the universe is holographic, yet tangible, ethereal, yet substantive. Here is a place where time is understood as atemporal. Here there is harmony amidst chaos. Here is where the darkened glass is finally cleared. Here is where you'll find the answers to all the unanswered questions which stretch across the cosmos.
And you are across the cosmos for the next hour. I am Chase Rockwell. I am your host. I am joined once again in studio by my co-hosts,
Dave Cameron,
Mark Wilson,
Lou Rogers.
Last week we left off discussing the fascinating topic of genetically modified organisms, or GMOs. This is a topic that has been very contentious and one that isn't going to go away anytime soon. The subject is fraught with controversy, with both sides having very strong opinions on what is true and what is not true. We here across the cosmos most definitely have opinions on the subject, and so without any more hesitation, I'd like to get right back into this conversation. So, Lou, you had a question or a line of thought that you were discussing earlier. Is that correct?
We're talking about, what was the name of that drug?
Which one?
Celebrex.
Oh.
Well, here's something interesting that everyone really needs to know about. Back in a few years ago, not very long, we had a big budget squabble between the Senate and the President, and our government would keep threatening to be shut down. You might remember there were World War II veterans that couldn't go to the World War II memorial. Well, within the rush to feed that bill and to make sure it was paid, the House Resolution Bill 933 was signed into law. Now, one of the sections hidden in the House Resolution Bill was the Monsanto Protection Act. This is now law. The Monsanto Protection Act effectively bars federal courts from being able to halt the sale or planting of controversial GMO, genetically modified or genetically engineered seeds, no matter what health issues may arise concerning GMOs.
Who passed that?
The House, the Senate, and the President signed it.
Why on earth would they do that?
Now, if you would really like to know, a couple of the people that were involved in getting this hidden into a spending bill, one of them was the rat bastard Roy Blunt, Republican of Missouri.
Why would you call him a bad name?
Because he just was willing to poison the entire country and sign it into law so it can't be stopped.
Well, I don't understand. Who would pass such a thing? Why would they pass such a thing?
Well, they pass it because it's in the bill and they can't see it. Just like any other bill, it gets added in.
Or hidden pork, Yeah. They hide things in bills.
But that is one of the most dangerous...
The man I just referred to is the man that helped write it and put it into the law.
That's one of the most dangerous things I've ever encountered.
And also was Senator Barbara Mikulski, sorry. So, and she is a rat bastard from the Democrat Party. So it's on both sides, people.
If you've got a chemical that the insects ingest and it causes them to have brain problems, it alters their brain chemistry so they die. That's basically what happens, right? And it used to be, we thought, let's just take the apple and run it into the water and wash off the bad stuff.
Well, you're washing off pesticide residue, and the people who pee on them when they're picking the fruit.
Right,
well,
but that does not wash off this chemical.
In Japan, when I spent over a year
it's
there.
absorbed through the
Skin.
soil.
Okay, and I've got an issue, a disclaimer here, or a correction.
Okay.
Though Celebrex has come under tremendous fire, and there's been warnings of heart risk, it's still on the market. The one they pulled was Vioxx and Bextra.
Oh, okay.
Although they're all NSAIDs, COX-2 inhibitors, evidently Celebrex has got a more powerful lobby. So they're still out there. So you can still have a side effect of death if you've got a bursitis in your shoulder.
Do you know how many of the drugs that are advertised today, many of them will tell you their side effects, and they go into this huge 20, 30-second spew of all the side effects.
And they read it really fast, so fast you can't hear it.
Really fast, but
Here, I'll read it slow.
It's monotone.
Here's the side effects of NSAIDs: increased risks of heart attack, stroke, and sudden cardiac death. Increased risk of ulcers, bleeding of the stomach, or intestines. That's always fun. Kidney and liver problems, including failure. Life-threatening skin rashes and life-threatening allergic. Can you imagine how bad a rash has got to be for it to be life-threatening?
Sounds like you're trying to label gasoline to drink.
Pretty much.
actually it'd be safer, I think.
So anyway, if you've got a little bit of bursitis in your shoulder, your hip, you can take some of this Celebrex.
And it'll make
Because you
it
can't
go away.
take Bextra or Vioxx anymore. Those were pulled. Bextra in 2005, Vioxx in 2004, but evidently Celebrex is still out there today. So go buy you some Celebrex, and you can have a life-threatening rash.
Well, those are chemicals, and so they're fearful of chemicals or pharmaceuticals. It's this natural bell that goes off in most people's heads.
But most people are.
In the old days, people used to treat arthritis by putting a copper bracelet on you.
Yeah.
Back in the
I understand that works.
everything you eat is chemical.
It affects.
I don't care what it is. Meat is chemical. Everything is chemical. And people need to understand that.
It's collapsed quantum particles from superposition
but-
state. But the thing is that you sit down to a meal of mashed potatoes, sweet potatoes, corn, and a Thanksgiving turkey and cranberry sauce. You say, oh, this smells so good. It tastes so good. And everything's been genetically modified.
For lunch, I had meatloaf that I made with hamburger I bought from
all genetically
Safeway.
modified.
It was complete. It was glowing. It was so genetically modified. I had potatoes that I bought from Walmart that I mashed, and they were glowing. And I had my genetically modified corn that came out of a can, and it was also glowing. So I don't have to put up Christmas lights this year. I'll just stand outside.
Though Japan won't allow GMOs into their country, they are one of the tightest controlled countries. They control their incoming food quite regularly.
Wasn't China getting involved in that too?
China grows their own stuff. They're trying.
They
to
got a lot of people.
Well, yeah, China doesn't
They
want.
just their experimental trials are they just take an entire town and they just feed them this
Japan
stuff.
at one time used pesticides so heavily while I was there. The people that I was working with, the Japanese, brought grapes for everybody to eat. And instead of grabbing a handful of grapes, pulling them off the vine and popping them in their mouth, they would pull one off at a time and peel the skin off the grape and then eat what was inside, not eating the skin. I not know. Why are you guys doing that? Because you can't wash the pesticide off the skin. So, while I toot the horn of Japan for saying, hey, we're not going to let genetically modified material in, they still go a little crazy and just about wiped out their entire insect population for a while.
To be fair, you have to feed billions of people in our world, 7.2. In America, what do we have, 330
but
million?
the argument
350?
is that we don't have enough arable land to do that.
Oh,
That is hogwash. That is the wash from a hog, a filthy, dirty, maggot-infested hog.
Well,
okay, because we've got
something that-
large swaths of arable land
Yes,
here on the African continent. What we do have also in abundance are a bunch of gutless, dictatorial, useless leaders and politicians. Robert Mugabe threw all of the white farmers off of the land in Africa when he took over Rwanda. And his cronies had no idea how to farm the land. So all these white farmers, merely because they were white, were thrown off. A lot of them were murdered, executed, run out of town on a rail. Mugabe gave all the land, all the farmland, this fertile farmland, to his buddies who didn't know what to do with it. It sits fallow. No grains are being grown. No crops are being grown because they don't know what the hell they're doing. And people are starving as a result. And that's the same crap that's going on all over the place.
Well, we came from a generation, I don't know who's listening, but Charlton Heston's Soylent Green. You know, we came from this generation in the 1960s and 70s that taught us that we're going to be overpopulated. There were Star Trek episodes like that. There were other science fiction movies.
That was a big movement back in the late 60s, early 70s.
Because we didn't understand, and we still don't understand, how many people can fit on the earth comfortably. But as far as having available farmland, we have amazing amount of available farmland.
When you talk about that, coming from a farming family, one of the key things you got to look at with farmland is availability of water.
Oh, secondly,
Paul Ehrlich, that was it. Population bomb way back in the 1970s.
Well, with farming,
everything that man predicted is not come true.
I know.
Everything. Not one thing this man predicted has come true.
Wait a second. That's not true.
Sounds like
if
Al
you
Gore.
look at Soylent Green and Charlton Heston before he gets chewed up says, Soylent Green is people! And he's trying to tell everybody. Of course, he gets chewed up. But that's exactly what the cows or the steers are crying because they're eating themselves up in Canada.
Tastes like chicken.
And he's a Stanford University professor too. That's what really just fries me is these people, they go out, they spout nonsense, they sell books.
Well, 1984, George Orwell's,
I
that's
researched
come true.
my book. Yes, George Orwell wasn't a university professor.
No,
he was
but
an author.
his book's pretty much dead on today.
Yes, it is.
Your TV is watching you, by the way.
If you're a Samsung, it is.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Samsung Smart TV. That's the one I initially got. I turned it in and got a Sanyo. Anyway.
GMOs. Today's focus is GMOs, genetically modified organisms. Notice the term is organism.
The problem
that covers everything.
But the problem is the
They should
mindset
have said,
that goes behind it, which is why we keep finding ourselves boomeranging back to politicians, leaders, etc. Because these are the people who are supposed to be the gatekeepers, into a large measure, who are not. They're just useless.
It's like the green.
Useless.
Well, it's like the green program. Because of technology, modern technology has really brought in a different element to everything. To farming, for instance, we have Federal Express. We have a system, transportation system that's amazing. So we can bring food from all over the United States and all over the world very rapidly. Whereas in the old days, it was trucked or trained out always. So food can get rotten, it can spoil, etc.
Oh, this is a major problem for years.
So now we've eliminated that, and so now it's really helped out world population. But
the rural population grew their own food. They weren't ordering it from New York via FedEx.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Well,
I think
and when
it
they
was
went
third world countries, the people that were starving, that some of this was for.
You know, let's tackle this for a moment. Let's go back to, say, British imperialism in the sub-Saharan African continent.
what year?
Mid-1800s.
I wasn't there.
Okay, but there's a wealth of history there.
Ah.
You look at, for example...
Who writes the history? Go ahead.
If you look, for example, British colonies in Africa, they did pretty well. You may not have liked your British overlords, but there was, for the most part, a level of peace, and things got along well. Then you get a Belgian king, Leopold, comes in, because he's landlocked too. And he's seeing Britain over here taking Kenya and what have you. He's seeing the Dutch take South Africa and the French taking Guyana. And he goes, well, I want a piece of this. So he goes down and he weaves his little web in Congo, takes over the rubber plantations and pits three of the tribal leaders against one another, eventually gets control, enslaves all of them, was the most brutal SOB ever to... In many respects, much worse than a Hitler because of the amount of lives he destroyed. And the effects of that are still being felt today. Mm-hmm. When you look at a Robert Mugabe in Rwanda, for example, or a Charles Taylor in Liberia, and just the whole situation with, I forget the... I can't remember the gentleman's name. He's like a Muslim cult leader or something. But the brutality is all as a result of how Leopold dealt with them. He took a vibrant, fertile part of Africa and turned it into a wasteland, which it still remains today, 150 years thereabouts later. And with proper leadership, with people who would just not constantly just selfish and on the take, the food problems wouldn't be here, regardless of whether there was a Monsanto or not.
Well, let's talk. If we're going to talk about world starvation for a minute.
Well, that was the impetus for Monsanto ostensibly.
I understand.
We're going to feed the world.
But Monsanto's real motto is there will be no food grown that we don't own.
Well, yeah, but that's not on their masthead.
Right. But if we're going to talk about people starving in Africa, that is a whole different scenario than the land mass being able to support the food. The land mass can support the food. The farmers can't grow it because most of the places are in a constant state of civil unrest and civil war.
Dangerous place,
and there are genocides going on that would just scare the life out of you if you started reading about it. And you cry, why isn't the American government not doing anything? Because the American government has no interest in Africa. Governments are not people. They do not have friends. They don't say... USA doesn't say, hey, Canada, let's go out and have lunch tomorrow. They say, hey, Canada, we have a vested interest that you stay stable so that nothing comes from you over into our borders, or we can get what
unless
we
they're
want.
Islamic militants.
Or we can get
and
what
then
we
it's,
want
we'll
you.
put out the red carpet for you and, invite you out
What's
to
an
dinner.
Islamic militant?
That would be ISIS.
I'm just talking about the terrorists, the fundamentalist Islam, Muslims who are
The mainstream Muslims.
are just pouring over the border, both north and south.
Right.
Canada's not stopping them. They would just as soon export them to the United States. And, of course, the same situation is going true in the southern border. They're not finding...
Here's an interesting situation regarding... why isn't GMOs a bigger problem in public? Why aren't we aware of it? Well, the media is controlled.
We are aware of it.
Well, the media is fairly controlled. And it's, as you said, it's all about money.
All the media outlets
It's
right
money,
now are
it's
controlled by
control.
seven
Let me
corporations.
show you
one of the situations, before you go on, understand that right now the internet is still open and free.
Mm-hmm.
I pulled up
For
an
a few
article
more
here.
days.
Here's a little small farmer, United States and Kansas, who won't eat his own GMO crops. And he says, I won't eat the crops that I grow for everybody else. Now, this isn't mainstream media. This is a website and the Natural Society. There's so many different ones, but my point is this. Right now, there is a movement through Barack Obama and his control of the FCC to take the internet out of the hands of the people and make it a public utility, like your water or your energy bill or what have you. And everything will be monitored through the United States government. When that happens, this show goes away. Other shows or opinions that are opposed to whoever is in power go away. And what you wind up with is they say things are fair. Too many in the audience, quite frankly, are stupid. And they believe anything that comes from the United States government.
They trust.
No, they're stupid.
And they trust. They trust what they're told. They trust the leaders. They trust, we find that in all kinds of situations.
That's why one of our mottos here at Across the Cosmos is don't take our word for it. Do the research
No,
yourself.
check it out yourself. But we give you the little tendrils to go and check and follow and this and that. My point is that, yeah, the media can only do so much. But we've got this tool, and if we don't hammer on our audience, they're not even going to have this as an opposition. You will have closed down opposition, so you won't know that your food is GMO because there's nobody there to tell you that it's GMO.
Well, the term GMO is simply a term that was coined. What it is a life-altering system. And I call it a system because it's ongoing. It's not like you're taking a cup of DDT and you have to wait for it to clear your body. is that everybody that ingests genetically modified organisms, you might as well say carbon-based life, you are genetically altering yourself. To what extent, it's not known, because tests aren't done. It's self-policed, like the tobacco industry was. It's a self-policed system.
Ask the American Cancer Society how that worked out.
Right. So it took so many decades before even a warning label was put on cigarettes. And then it took the freedom of being able to put commercials up and show that, hey, people really are dying. It took a lot of years. GMOs, I'm not saying they're nasty or bad. I'm saying they need to be tested by independent, truly independent scientific companies that know what they're doing and have the available technology to truly look into this.
And who's going to finance this independence?
Funding, right. Well, right now, all over the world, there are companies that are doing just that in order to prevent their people from falling underneath the same hypnotic problem we're encountering right now, which is we're ingesting it, tastes good, looks good, I'll think about it later, I'm going to die anyway, who really cares?
And there's a lot of that.
And that's what's going on.
But you're arguing against a free market economy.
No, I'm not
because
arguing.
Monsanto is a business and they produce a product and people can buy them or not. My argument is that the free market economy works fine, monopolies do not.
Right.
And that's what Teddy Roosevelt did back in 1911 is when Standard Oil was finally broken up with this trust-busting movements against Standard Oil is trying to monopolize petroleum. It's the same way that Monsanto is monopolizing the production of food.
But you're not coming out with a new type of candy bar that's got to be approved by the FDA or whatever. You're coming out.
What the hell does it mean? FDA approval is irrelevant when they're bought off.
Right. Well, this is a system by which every American
is. The FDA is one of the most incompetent governmental agencies I've ever seen.
Exactly. I want to jump in. FDA. How many drugs have been pulled off the market in the last 10 years that the Federal Food and Drug Administration has allowed to go onto the market?
No, because when they're caught with their hand in the cookie jar, they say, "Well, this was just a recommendation."
Exactly.
F you in your recommendation.
And the same thing. Just because that happens on the drug side of it, people, it happens on the food side.
So what you're saying is that they're not being honest.
There's no reason.
Is there a cloud of uncertainty regarding honesty?
It is the government.
I am sure there
Ronald
are
Reagan once said
there.
the most terrifying words anyone can hear is, "I am from the government and I'm here to help." Okay? Whenever the government strays from their primary focus or mission, which is protect the sovereignty of the United States by protecting its borders.
No, they look at it differently.
And keeping... I know they look at it differently.
Government means to govern the people as we see fit. That's exactly what they think.
But the flip side is when you've got a corporation that's been allowed to grow like a weed, Monsanto ought to spray themselves with their own Roundup, quite frankly. It grows out of control, and what do you have? But here's this problem, and I know this isn't necessarily on the topic of GMOs, but the effect of GMOs as a result of this unfettered growth and this monopolistic practice with Monsanto is that they have essentially become a monopoly. And that's bad for everybody.
Well, because they become so powerful.
And it stifles competition.
Not only that, they're able to eliminate their accountability.
There is no accountability.
That's my point, but they've eliminated that through the politics, through the money, through whatever. That's what monopoly...
You are not going to get independent testing because they will not allow it.
Well, let me ask
you a question. They will bankrupt anyone who tries.
Completely.
This country,
there's been other countries that have done it, and they've already come out with studies.
You know what? We still have an international community, and if Monsanto is the largest producer of food, then you have an embargo on another country because Monsanto says, look, these guys aren't playing ball. Screw them. You're my politician. You either get this through Congress or I will cut you off and you won't be able to open up a dog catching.
Okay, Monsanto's one company, correct?
They're a huge company.
Well, they're one company.
No. And we're not talking about one company. We are talking about a multi-billion dollar...
They are an entity.
Yes.
Okay, they're one face. They're one entity. How many other entities that are competing in the same market have government protection as they do? How many?
0.
Well, that's not fair.
That's why I called them a monopoly.
Well, that's not fair.
What in life is ever fair?
No, I mean, that's wrong.
Yes, it is.
Of course it's wrong. When someone is
I
so
don't
big
understand.
that they don't have to play by the rules,
They can make the rules.
they make the rules.
Here's an interesting public awareness
But that's what's happened even with our government. I know that's a whole nother
is
subject.
always a steering wheel is used. Like, for instance, take the green initiative. We're worried about the ozone layer, we're worrying about icebergs melting, and we're worrying about all these other problems. Our world is becoming hotter, and they're taking measurements, and everyone's kind of agreed. It's kind of like everyone's agreed that evolution is the truth. In schools, if you go into any school, look at the textbooks, it says that we evolved. And every news program I've ever heard says the same thing. So it's kind of like it's a given, just like the greenhouse situation. It's a given, right? Why is that? Because of perception, how it's steered. The same thing, the reason Monsanto can do what it does is because of perception and how it's steered.
All right, I understand what you're saying to a point.
Well, no, it's like perception says that there was a Big Bang. That's what popular perception says, and you're a supposed idiot if you don't believe there's a Big Bang. And the reason why is because most churches have come on board with the scientific communities. It's if you go to any textbook in school, high school, junior high school, and college, and higher learning, it's a slam dunk.
As a general rule, any church who is adhering to a scientific point of view is about 10 years behind the curve.
That's true. They're 10 years behind in most things. But my point is that perception is steered so that we all believe a certain thing in a certain way.
Okay, but Monsanto is not necessarily a perception situation. They claim they're not a monopoly because they have a diverse product offering, and that different products that they offer do have certain competitors. But with respect to, for example, their seed production, there really is no viable competitor there. And with respect to their clientele, there is no open market. They say that people don't have to buy their seeds, but they will sue the hell out of you and run you through it. The presumption with Monsanto is guilt, and you have to prove your innocence.
Well, they have to be a monopoly because if
they
you
don't
look,
have to be a
they
monopoly.
have to be because if you look at the legislation, it only names Monsanto. It doesn't name other companies that are their competitors currently. In other words, the bill didn't say Monsanto and then list all the competitors, did it?
No, because there are no viable competitors.
Well, then that's not what they said.
No, Monsanto's every time Monsanto gets hit with the monopoly claim, what they say is, we're not a monopoly, we've got this thing that we do, we've got that thing we do, and there's competitors in those particular fields. But then people say, well, with respect to the seeds, and their response is, well, you don't have to buy our seeds, you use your own seeds. Great, where can we find them? And if I do happen to find seeds, and I put them on my property, and your big farm is a mile down the road, and a wind gust blows up, whereas normally, if all things were being equal, Monsanto would be responsible for containment of their farms.
It doesn't just take wind; it can be the bees and the flies.
But exactly, there's pollination drift as well. That's a
Right.
That's a whole paper and a science. And their position is well, we put money into developing these particular seeds, and we can't control the bees, and we can't control the rain. Well, then you know what? It should be a matter of, well, when your crap goes over into my farm, you should pay for cleanup because I didn't corrupt my product. But Monsanto turns it on its head and says, well, no, you're stealing my intellectual property, so I'm going to sue the hell out of you and bankrupt you and bury you and then burn the ground after you're dead.
We make some incredible cars. Automobiles today are a real precision instrument, incredibly crafted. I mean, a lot of people can gripe about their car.
I gripe about the price.
Well, the price is actually very cheap compared to what it would cost to put one of those together. Cars are actually very inexpensive. It's just that in the scheme of things, they seem expensive, but they're a brilliantly crafted, mechanical device, and they do a lot for us. But they're crafted with safety.
Spy on you and check you. And
Right. But they're crafted with safety in mind. Why? Why is there so many safety?
Because they can kill.
And there's a government regulations that say you have to do this, seat belts and airbags, and you have to be able to take so much impact on the left, the right, the top, the bottom. Right. It's all to save lives. So they're building an incredible machine, and also it's really safe. And when it isn't safe, they know they can get sued for a lot of money. So
and there is the impetus.
Now, with Monsanto, they're not just building a vehicle that may house people. They're feeding people on a daily basis. Babies, elderly.
I understand all
they're
that.
feeding people.
I understand.
So therefore, it is of a paramount importance that what they put into the systems of these people
be regulated.
Okay. Here's the difference, though. All right. You've got a bunch of chemists that are on staff. And much like in higher education, when you hold a doctorate or a master's in an Ivy League, or not even an Ivy League, if you aren't published, you're dead. And when you get to that level in higher education, you're either going to stay there and continue to publish, or you're going to move on to the private sector and make some money that way. You're not just going to be satisfied with the status quo, because that makes you a middling educator or professor or what have you. You publish or you die. If you're a chemist working for Monsanto, you're producing or you're unemployed. They have no use of keeping these chemists on in R&D unless you're doing something. And they continue to do R&D because they want to get the next product out on the market so they can make money.
Agreed.
Research and development.
It is not so much about looking at the situation as it stands and maintaining and making a ton of money doing that. It is a matter of innovating and taking that next step. So you're going to continue to screw at the food source, even though it's already at a level now where we can adequately feed the population with no problem. No, we're going to continue to screw it more. And then if anybody tries to come and do something a little different, we're going to screw them too.
Let's think this through. Lou, you pulled out the corn.
Yes.
Brand new ear corn off your friend's property. You pull it, you peel it back, and what did you see?
That particular story.
Yeah.
This is what got me into the whole GMOs. I was reading a story about a
skull
farmer.
and crossbones. That's what they ought to manufacture. Yes. That way you'll know if your corn is GMO. It'll have a skull and crossbones etched into it.
This story dates back, I believe it was 1995.
Right.
I could be mistaken. And the story of two farmers talking. And one had just tried the Monsanto GMO seed for corn. And he was telling his neighbor farmer how great of a crop he was having. And bugs were no problem. And they were walking through the farmer's field, and he goes, sure, take a look. And he grabbed an ear of corn, pulls the ear of corn open, and dead weevils fall out.
And what did the corn look like?
It looked like corn. It
looked beautiful, didn't it?
It looked gorgeous,
now,
shiny.
I got a question. This is just me.
Now, this other farmer that was looking at going into Monsanto thought, oh, this is a great deal, and went home. And started to contact Monsanto. And as he was contacting Monsanto, all of a sudden the thought went across his mind, should food kill?
Right. It's just the eating of the corn. Do you know the corn is actually registered as a pesticide? That's weird.
Well, I've not seen that, but I wouldn't.
Look it up. It's so if the weevils eat the corn and they die because it's genetically designed to kill, what's it doing to humans? Maybe we have to take a lot more than a weevil does, because I mean, to a weevil, one little kernel is like a gigantic room full of food, but to us, it's a lot smaller. But look that up right now. You'll find out the color of the seeds are quite interesting too.
Well, the seeds are blue or green, and they're coated. They look like they've been spray painted.
So that's what the problem I have with the GMOs is that just like Chrysler builds an incredible car and it's got to be incredibly safe, or Honda or Ford or Chevy, incredible machines. Now, sure, it's by government regulations because of deaths that have made them do these modifications and improvements, but they've done a brilliant job. Every so often there's a little problem, but and it becomes a huge problem when someone dies. But my point is that for the most part, they're extremely safe compared to the 1920s and 30s.
And they still make money.
And they're incredibly defendable. And they still make money. So the GMOs I'm saying is that if you're going to be eating corn that kills bugs and birds, or not birds, but weevils that the birds eat, interesting. And what does it do to us? There should be some kind of a regulation where there's money given to independently test and do long-range testing to make certain that 10 years down the road, the corn I've been eating, what will it do to me or what will it do to my child? You know, you mentioned autism or ADHD. And there's so many different types of brain abnormalities, chemical problems, we call them, that we address with more chemicals because we don't know what else to do. We don't know why a person has autism. We don't know why these things happen. But wouldn't it be interesting to find if there's a correlation between the two?
Who are you going to go to do that?
Well, I think it'd be a wonderful thing to do for the world.
Okay, who is going to monitor and regulate and be in charge of this? The government? The very same FDA that we can't trust with I wouldn't trust him with my dog, and my dog has been dead for 5 years.
I know that science is very complicated.
So that's the problem. And with respect to appearance, there was a news article I was reading the other day with respect to apples that they were working, and I don't know if this was Monsanto or somebody else. I think it was Monsanto, but don't hold me to it. But they're working on an apple that won't brown when it's been cut.
Yeah.
Because people find the browning, the oxidation of the pulp unsightly.
Right.
Now,
They're trying to
it doesn't change how the apple tastes. It doesn't affect the apple's nutrients. It's just oxidation.
Yeah, but if you try and prevent that, the way to prevent that, you'll achieve that. But the problem is, what have you done genetically, and what will it do to the human?
That's the whole question. But why are they going down that road? And they're going down that road because the public doesn't like brown apples.
But also they're going down that road because the public's been brainwashed into this evolutionary design of humans. And if you look
why do we care whether or not an apple slice is brown?
Well, I understand. It's the aesthetics. And people always, they go, ooh, I don't want to eat this. But if you look at evolution, and if you look at cutting-edge science and you watch the TED Talks, there's almost this euphoria going around that, hey, we're going to be able to live forever someday. But if you look at how we're going to live forever, we're either a download into some kind of computer-driven body, which we are the intelligence behind it, or we have replaceable parts. We're a human cyborg, okay? And we think that's kind of cool because we'll be able to live forever. But we've already accepted...
Not all of us think that that's
We've
kind of
accepted
cool.
the fact that we're an evolutionary byproduct of upward causation. It's a slam dunk because science says so. So when we talk about genetically modified organisms, it's no big deal because that's what it's all about anyway. Survival of the fittest. It's all about evolution. So all we're doing is we're changing the evolutionary future of a particular design of a particular vegetable.
They might even think they're helping evolution.
Yeah, they even might think they're doing a good job.
The whole premise of
I think it's about
survival of the
money,
fittest
and I think it's about
is
control.
Not true.
It's not true at all.
Well, and the reason I know a bunch of you are screaming, it's not about survival of the fittest. It's about survival of the species that reproduces the most. You can have a bird on the Galapagos Islands that has modified itself to eat the hard peck, have the hard bill to peck the seeds there. And you have birds with the soft bill, like the regular ones have. If the birds with the soft bill outproduce by mating the other birds at 10 to 1, the bird that's supposed to work there will die and the other ones will live. It's all about who reproduces.
It's all about sex.
It is all about sex. Just ask the books, ask the movies. But now back on the
story.
Back onto the subject. One of the chemicals in GMO foods produced, especially in corn, is a biotoxin. And
that's a biological toxin. Toxin means bad.
Bacillus thuringiensis. Sorry, I can't.
Don't even say it.
Anyway, the scientists will tell you right away, look, it's okay because it's safe for humans. It's a natural occurring toxin. It's a natural occurring thing, and humans can ingest it, and it's not going to hurt us. And we have used it safely on pesticides for years. Well, the difference is now it's not on your food. Your food is producing it from within itself. It's part of its genetic makeup.
Would that be part of the evolutionary process then? I mean, for example, if we have altered the genetic structure, we're talking about an evolutionary progression. Like Mark was saying, that the kiddies like to look forward to this evolutionary progression because we're on our way to a particular goal and there's going to be change, etc. I suppose that we're modifying things artificially should come into play. I don't know how much that's being taken into account though. But I was thinking about a situation. There's a little island called St. Stephen's Island near New Zealand. And there was a lighthouse keeper, I believe it was a lighthouse keeper, who went there with his pet cat. And the cat was not native to the island, obviously. But there was a particular bird that was nesting on this island. There was a lot of them. And over this evolutionary period, these birds didn't fly. I guess it was thought that at one time they did. And because there was no natural predators for them on this island, they didn't need to fly, so they just kind of walked around. Well, this cat of this lighthouse keeper, his cat's name is Tibbets, had a field day. And he wiped out the entire population of the St. Stephen's Island wren. One cat. Nothing special about the cat, except that the birds had no idea what a cat was.
Didn't fear it.
Didn't have a natural fear, and couldn't fly. And so the cat just picked them off one by one.
Having fun.
And by the time, the lighthouse keeper realized what was going on, the St. Stephen's wren was no more. It's extinct.
Because of a cat.
Of Tibbets the tabby.
So
there's your evolutionary mucking. That would have been an artificial construct introduced to this evolutionary cycle.
Which is what we're doing right
Tibbets the tabby, and there would still be the St. Stephen's wren, which would seem to be doing well on the island without the interference of either the lighthouse keeper or Tibbets the tabby for God knows how long.
Yes.
So is that akin to us mucking around with the corn?
No.
No? I think it is.
No.
Look,
we added something that's not
would the
normal
ears be as big and fat? No. Would they be as yellow? No. Would there occasionally be, the weevils in the corn? Yes. Would it kill us?
And you'd pull open the corn and you'd have those occasional ugly-looking rows.
Let's put it this way. When you bite into an ear of nice, fresh, yellow corn, dripping with butter, and it's warm and so tasty you like salt or pepper on it, and you're so excited, crunch, you bite into it. You are eating pesticide that you cannot wash off. It is a pesticide.
But it looks good.
It looks good.
So just like the people who voted for Obama because he looked good, he'll kill you, but it looked good, they'll do the same thing with the food. Well, that explains everything.
Matt, you just mix politics with
with everything.
Serious.
Everything is symbolism over substance.
I understand.
If it looks good,
those two
screw the substance behind it.
Yeah, but when you do that, you lessen the problem with GMO because your particular desire regarding politics, what you believe in, and you're putting it on an equal basis with the GMOs, and it's not.
A crook is a crook.
Well, the GMO is the corn, not what's on the corn. You can scrub it with soap. You can't get the pesticide out of the corn unless you throw the corn in the garbage.
And you can scrub it with soap, but you can't get the stupid out of some of these politicians.
Okay. You win. But it's that dangerous. The problem is because a lot of us are on very limited budgets for food, and we try and shop the best we can. A lot of people use coupons or only shop on coupon day, and they want to have corn.
Let me tell you something. There has been an uptick in celiac disease and gluten intolerance, which a lot of people are regarding as a fad. It's not a fad.
Nope.
Okay? Gluten intolerance and celiac disease has exploded.
And
the
why?
reason being is because we're being fed poison. So, just like Tibbets the tabby fed poison to those wrens because he was an artificial introduction into their environment, which they thrived fine on. All this genetic modification and manipulation to our food are killing us. But we don't care because it looks nice.
Because we've interfered with what natural nature process. We've interfered with it.
We have. And because it's easier. It's easier to do that than to take a Robert Mugabe and all of his cronies and throw him the hell out of Rwanda and give the farms back to people who know how to farm.
To show you a little bit of how intricate things are in nature, my dietitian, she told me that it is important to actually have honey from the very place that you live. That if you get honey imported, that there's differences in what goes on in the whole scheme of things somehow. I don't know what it is.
Now, because the bees are pollinating local plants and what have you. But my question to you is this. If you've got a bee that's got honey from a pollinated, and, you've got to get...
GMO plant.
You've got to get a particular type of honey. The honey you buy off the store at Walmart or something is mostly corn syrup and crap.
It's not real honey. You have to buy... If you're going to buy honey, you buy local wild honey.
And that's exactly what she's saying. But she's saying... that if you get honey from a different area or different country, that it's even there's some differences in it versus where you live.
We have just stumbled on. It has
something to do with climate. It has something to do with, I don't know what it all has to do with. I should probably research that.
We have just stumbled onto another subject of GMOs that the people really, really need to be aware of. And that is bees.
The bee death?
Right now...
You think the bee death is being caused by genetically modified?
That's a good point to think through.
Well, let me... For those of you that don't know how important the bee is, without the bees, we will have no food.
Pollination.
They do the majority of the pollination for hundreds and hundreds of different species of plants. And without those bees there to pollinate, the plants will stop reproducing.
I wish someone would do a study on that regarding GMOs and bees, if there's been an effect.
Monsanto is fighting like hell because there are people coming at them saying that whenever these products get introduced, all of a sudden they start seeing widespread bee colony collapse.
There's actually an article on that.
And that's what it's called.
Lots of them.
It makes sense because honey is, we can't reproduce honey, even in a lab.
Honey is the perfect food.
And honey lasts...
It is bee spit.
Yes, it is.
Well, you can dig... They've dug up honey from some of the tombs of the pharaohs in Egypt that are verified to be 3,500 years old.
Sugar. Sugar doesn't decay.
And you heat it up, and you can eat the honey.
Yep.
It
will not spoil.
And let me tell you something. For those who don't like the unsightliness of honey that crystallizes, so that's why they go to the Walmart or Safeway and they buy the syrup honey because it never crystallizes. I bought some organic honey and it crystallized. Bought a big jar of it. It crystallized. I stuck the jar in a pot of water.
Warm water, yeah.
I heated it up. I didn't put it on a high boil. I put it on a little less than a medium boil. It stayed in there for about 2 hours. Completely melted back down.
You can even turn the heat down lower, yeah.
Yeah, and that's what I did, and it's perfect. Now, the smaller bottle is starting to crystallize again, but I'll just melt it back down.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's not that big of a deal. It's far more healthy for you than the organic or the for the commercial. What is it?
I wonder.
Corn.
That makes all the sense in the world.
The corn syrup byproduct?
Yeah, but,
Because
I can't remember the name at all.
high fructose corn syrup is what
as
I'm
the
thinking
bees
of.
pollinate, how they create the honey is through their mandibles.
Yes.
But it's also based on the different local...
And if you have corn and you have soy...
You have programmed the plant to grow BTH toxin, which causes the intestines of the insect eating it to rupture.
Oh my gosh.
You mind if I read this for a moment?
Yeah,
this
I mean,
is
that makes
from
perfect
the Global
sense.
Research website, which is, you can find it at www.globalresearch.ca, which means it's out of Canada. This was an article published in August of 2011, rather. Third paragraph down, I'm going to read. There are many reasons given to the decline in bees, but one argument that matters most is the use of genetically modified organisms, or GMOs, and the quote-unquote Terminator seeds that are presently being endorsed by governments and forcefully utilized as our primary agricultural needs of survival. Author says he will argue what is being publicized and covered by the media is actually masking the real forces at work, namely the impact of genetically modified seeds on the reproduction of bee colonies across North America. Now, we pretty much covered a lot of that.
We call it bee colony
We've
collapse.
got bee colony collapse. We also call it collusion between media,
If you're killing
politicians,
weevils,
and these multinational
killing
conglomerates.
if you're killing weevils and insects, of course they spray from planes still, okay? Right. I understand that. And the bees that are caught in that spray, they die, which is stupid, but that's what happens.
Well, they just die, but they die right there at the plant.
But if they're being genetically altered,
well,
as they're passing it down to their young,
they're taking back the food.
It goes into the honey. So not only are they dying, but we're dying.
Well,
right.
So
literally,
what we're saying is that these GMOs is actually killing nature.
Have you ever seen Terminator?
Yes, altering nature and killing nature.
You ever seen the movie Terminator?
Which one?
The first one.
I've seen all of them.
Okay, well, what's Terminator based on? It's based on the arrogance of science,
Very
created AI, artificial intelligence. And we thought it was so wonderful for the first 10, 15 years,
Until
right?
it started killing us.
Until it became self-aware, and it gave a date when it became self-aware, and it took over all these systems and eventually created their own robots, Terminators to wipe out humans.
And realized that its number one threat was humans.
So it's a cool movie. It's all about, fun and science fiction. But GMOs are just like artificial intelligence. It's a bomb waiting to go off. And they may lie in their pockets today, and they will grow old and they'll grow fat.
But it's going to kill them.
Eventually what will happen is, and we'll even be able to point to that time when we've wiped out the ability for humans to grow food.
Well, listen to this.
Right now, I believe what we're talking about.
You destroy or alter the bees, you've doomed the world.
All right, listen.
Right now, I believe we are trying to defuse a bomb that has already gone off.
No, we're not. We're blowing on the fuse so it'll burn faster because we really don't care. Because
this is scary stuff.
This conclusion of this gentleman, let me see, what's the author's name? Britt Amos. Conclusion, and he gave a bunch of stuff here which I'm not going to go into because people can read it themselves. His conclusion was that the proof is obvious that one of the major reasons of the bee decline is by the ingestion of GMO proteins. This is problematic as there is such an increase of indigestible foods in humans and bees. The situation of colon cancer in humans is somewhat similar in occurrence. This is only a theory, but leaves one to wonder what we are eating en masse. The external or complementary good of the bees is obviously a rise for global concern, obviously. The long-term economical environmental impact is yet to be completely understood because we haven't been doing it that long, but it's going to get there.
Well, and nobody wants to do it.
His contention is because he did a bunch of experiments and did some forensic examination of bee tracks and what have you.
Yeah.
And those that are eating primarily organic foods, their tracks are becoming black discolored and are softening.
GMO foods or organic
GMO foods.
Yeah.
No, the ones that are eating unpainted are healthy.
Right.
But it's having a problem.
Again, you kill the bees.
It's having a physical impact on the bees, just like, your corn with the weevils. If the insects are dying, even good insects like bees and what have you, we have got a big, big problem.
You kill off the praying mantis, you have a problem. You kill off the bees, you have a huge problem.
Okay, and that's where Tibbets the tabby comes into this whole situation.
My point is that you cannot grow food. And then they'll try and genetically pollinate. They'll try and create food in such a way that it's done by some kind of a science. And they think they're going to be the savior of mankind by doing that, but it'll end up with a worse problem.
Well,
we have created a time bomb for future generations. There's no question.
But presently, those in charge don't regard it as such.
When this table
and it might be by design because, you've got these like Paul Ehrlich in the population bomb, maybe this is a good way to call the
Killing
undesirables.
people, yeah.
Well, now we're talking about Agenda 21.
Yeah, which
And the
we're going to have to get into. We should probably wrap this episode up,
Okay,
though,
yeah.
because we're running a little long. And so, a lot to think about. This is a subject I think we're going to have to revisit. There's absolutely no doubt about that. We barely scratched the surface. But the primary purpose of doing a show like this is just to let people be aware of the fact that this stuff is going on. And whether it be DuPont, ConAgra, Monsanto, you know, they all have their little niche areas, and presently they hold monopolies in those niche areas. And Monsanto is, there's no doubt they're huge. I mean, they're absolutely huge.
I want to interject right here. We're talking about Monsanto. Monsanto bought recently another corporation about 3 or 4 years ago. We know that corporation as the Blackwater Corporation. Those of you that don't know what the Blackwater Corporation is, they are ex-military
out there, private
that are
security
hired
firm.
by the government for security in war zones. We used to call them mercenaries.
Well, we can still call them mercenaries.
Why does a multi-billion-dollar plant-growing corporation need mercenaries?
Because they're protecting their intellectual property.
And you
All
know,
right.
And you know what the sad part is? Their intellectual property, they really don't know what they think they know.
Well, they don't know. I believe they don't know the
They don't
eventual
know
effects,
the
but they.
extent of it.
Well, intellectual property deals with the design of the organisms that they're genetically manipulating.
Intellectual, yet they don't even know the extent of what they have.
But that doesn't
In
factor
other
into.
words, it's an oxymoron.
Well, no, but it doesn't.
It is.
Intellectual property primarily refers to that which they have through R&D designed and contrived and putting out on the market. And if you're doing all the work to create this, then it is yours. You own it. It's your intellectual property. You're not going to allow somebody else to get it for free unless you hold it open for free distribution. It's the same as a musician who does not want his music disseminated without being properly recompensed.
So we used to have copyright and what's the other one?
We still do.
Trademark.
This
is aggressive protection.
That protected that.
Well, but those are all different parts of legal definition. Intellectual property is more than a patent or a copyright or a trademark. It's a little deeper than that because it goes into the whole process of the idea, if you will. And that's why they keep getting these little farmers, because their seeds have been, a lot of money has gone, and there's no doubt a lot of money has gone into the research and development of all this stuff.
If you can also leave the listeners with this, because those that believe that by eating organic foods, no matter where you buy those organic foods, the seeds are undoubtedly Monsanto seeds.
Well, yeah, and I think that through my own personal research in doing this, most of those folks who are really into purity of foods and what have you are already aware, and they're screaming as loud as they can the dangers of a lot of this.
But most people aren't.
But the run-of-the-mill
Majority of the
public,
population.
the majority of people out there simply don't care. And all you have to do is look at the market share of McDonald's and Burger King and Taco Bell to see that we really don't care.
No,
what
but
we're
organic
eating,
eaters
because
do
at the
care.
same time, some of them do.
Oh,
some of them do.
they're
Look,
paying a
you
lot of
can't-
money
you
for
can't
organic.
sell
That's
me.
the
You
reason
cannot
they
sell
pay
me
more
on
money.
this. You can't sell me on this fact that I'm going to eat all organic food, etc. And then you go down and you buy a pack of Marlboro Reds and stuff it in
A lot
your
of
face.
people don't.
Well, but a lot of people do.
My point in this was that there's a lot of Christian organizations, for instance, that will grow their own wheat, or they'll at least go down to the store and buy organic wheat and organic ingredients to make their own bread or whatever. And they think they're doing a good job.
Doing something good.
We all do.
They are to a point because they don't have a lot of the processed nitrates and all this other crap that also goes into the foods,
But
which also helps.
The difference between GMOs and non-GMOs, you have to be really clear. It's not like there's a pesticide used. It's not the issue of washing something off or peeling the skin off, like on the grapes or on an apple. The issue is inside it. It's genetically modified.
I get all of that.
And it's killing things.
I get all. It's killing the bees, according to this gentleman's study. Yeah, the bees are suffering.
And you mentioned, Lou, that you suffer from gluten intolerance, as I do, as you do, as you do. All of us here do. And I remember as a kid, I loved bread.
I don't suffer from gluten intolerance. My wife does.
Oh, well, I know I do, but I wondered what happened in the last decade. Oh, my system's getting old. But why is it so violent at times? And then I realized that all wheat in the United States is genetically modified. No matter what bread you buy, it's genetically modified.
Yeah. Well,
we say our system's getting old, but yet a lot of this started in our 40s, and that's not old.
It doesn't matter. Go back one generation. When my parents were at my age, they didn't have intolerance to gluten. They didn't have...
Didn't even know about it.
They didn't have
inflammation and the inflammation and the swelling of the joints.
They never talked about it. It's all It's all exploding.
It's all lumbago.
It's all these different things are exploding within the human body after the
irritable bowel
introduction of GMOs into our
truly
food chain.
Exploding.
Come on, people. There has to be some type
connection.
of tie. This doesn't happen
by itself.
out of
And people don't
chance.
care. And by and large, people don't care. And that's the whole point of this broadcast, is to alert people to the fact that this stuff is going on. And we're going to be looked upon as kooks and loons, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But you know what? We're being poisoned slowly. I think in the back of our brains, we all know this, and we don't care. So there you go. We will conclude, therefore, on that note, this episode of Across the Cosmos. And we'll ask you to join us again next week. So, for
Dave Cameron,
Mark Wilson,
Lou Rogers,
I am your host, Chase Rockwell, saying so long until the next time you find yourself across the cosmos.
Send any questions or comments to us via email at info@acrossthecosmos.com. Also, visit us on the web at www.acrossthecosmos.com for show updates, news, and other important information. No part of this podcast may be used without the express written permission from the staff of Across the Cosmos. Across the Cosmos is a production of Omite Corporation. Copyright 2015.